Kindly keep your audio on mute to prevent any background sounds from disturbing the webinar in progress. Second, if you have any questions to ask, please type them in the chat box and we will do our best to answer as many of them towards the end of the webinar. Three eminent professionals will enlighten us with their thoughts, perspectives, and actionable strategies. But before that, I'm very happy to inform you that we have with us Bishop Alvin De Silva, who will share a few thoughts. A brief introduction of Bishop Alvin. He is in charge of the Justice and Peace Commission for the Archdiocese of Bombay and coordinator of the Prison Ministry. Bishop Alvin is the secretary of the Climate Change Desk and Human Development Office for the Federation of Asian Bishops' Conferences. He is also in charge of the Thane, Navi Mumbai, and Raigad deaneries. As part of his priestly ministry, he has been deeply involved in human rights issues, social concerns, and environmental matters. Okay. Bishop Alvin has been a president and director for several organizations, institutions, foundations, trusts, and consortiums across India and Asia. Thank you, Bishop, for joining us today. We request you to share your thoughts with us. Bishop Alvin De Silva.
Thank you, Vincent, for introducing me to this webinar. I'm very happy to be part of this webinar. Denver requested me to say a few words, and so I will say a few words before you begin. This topic is very important because some months ago, before the pandemic, we had a session for all the people who have lost their jobs. And we expected about 40 or 50 people to come for the session. And nearly 400 people came for the session. It only shows that really before the pandemic, it really showed that people are slowly were slowly losing their jobs. We had somebody from the Jet Airways who shared. And that was a time when it struck us that we need to plan for the future, or not for the future. You know, Pope Francis has said, don't plan for the future, plan the future. And I think what you are doing is to plan the future, to find out how people, youth especially, will have to think of different skills, will have to think of different jobs. And I think you all are doing a wonderful job. You also in the social apostolate, Royston, who will be speaking, is part of our group. We also are thinking of how we can train the youth and how we can cope up, how we can help people to cope up with the loss of jobs and the redundancy in jobs. So all the best to Dr. Bellona and Royston and to all the speakers. I wish you all the best, and hopefully we can join hands together and plan the future and not plan for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop. That was very inspiring. And I would like to now take you on to our first speaker of the day. A little introduction on our first speaker, Dr. Bellona Annunciation. Dr. Bellona is a practicing psychiatrist, consulting more than 5,000 patients a month. She's working as a consultant at the Institute of Psychological Health, Thane, Prafulta Counseling Center, Andheri, Hiramongi Navneet Hospital, Mulund, the in-house medical expert at Janus International Private Limited, and co-founder at Catalyst. She has completed her MD in psychiatry after having done her Bachelor's of Medicine, that's the MBBS, from Grand Medical College, Mumbai. She has a friendly, approachable demeanor, which puts people at ease and enables them to open up about their concerns. She enjoys working with children and frequently guides parents and kids with concerns about academics, behavior, habits, and addictions. Dr. Vilona works with a variety of adult psychiatric concerns like depression, anxiety, psychosis, sleep disturbance, personality disorders, substance and behavioral addictions, and stress-linked conditions. She has a keen interest in preventive psychiatry and devotes a significant amount of time to creating awareness and battling the stigma associated with psychiatric illness. She's a confident public speaker and has conducted numerous workshops and training programs for various organizations. Dr. Vilona enjoys interacting with people and understanding their varied views, which enables her to gain an insight into the complexities of human behavior. Her latest foray into the world of social media dependency and the psychological problems associated with overuse of the internet and social networking sites is fast becoming an area of passion for her as she battles the growing concerns of parents and children alike. She is fluent in English, Hindi, Marathi, Konkani, and Kannada. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Vilona Annunciation to talk to us about emotional well-being.
Thank you so much, Martin. That was very, very kind of you. It was a very long introduction, but thank you so much for that. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's session. I will be speaking on emotional well-being. In my last 10 years as a psychiatrist, I have, over a period of time, seen people coming with a lot of concerns. And one of the biggest stressors that people report when they talk about their anxiety or depression or whatever it is that is playing on their mind, one of the biggest stressors that always comes up is finances and work. And not only through this pandemic, but even before that, we have honestly been struggling with a number of concerns when it comes to managing our mental health in relation to money and job stresses. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we use as strategies to guide our patients through emotional concerns during this stressful period. I'm just going to begin sharing my screen. So we're going to talk about emotional well-being today. And when you think about emotional well-being, we're always looking at factors that are not really in our control, isn't it? When we talk about emotional stress, we say that I wish my boss was nicer, I wish I had a better job, I wish someone could, take care of these stressors that I am looking at. I wish everything would go the way I would like it to. And honestly, when we say the word I wish, we're putting factors that are outside our control into priority. So in mental health, we always talk about looking at factors within our control. And that is one of the biggest factors that would motivate or that would take care of your emotional well-being. As we are moving through this crisis, what are we looking at as concerns in mental health? So one of the biggest concerns that people have reported to me in the last few months has been a frustration. A frustration at sitting at home, a frustration at the number of chores they have to complete, a frustration with the job scene, a frustration with the finances. And now with the lockdown opening up, a newer frustration is coming up, that is, or disregard that people have for norms, a paranoid feeling that is creeping into everybody when it comes to thinking about whether they are not going to catch the infection. If they catch the infection, they're sitting at home for 14 days because they're quarantined, and a lot of worry and anger that builds up because of the frustration. Anger is a very natural response to frustration. When we are overthinking or when we are worried about something, we always tend to respond to people who need a lot of patience from us with anger. So a mother who's really struggling with work at home, or a father who's come back from work with a lot of stress that he faced at work with his boss, and the kids come and say something, and you let it go the first time. They say it again, and then you let it go the second time. The third time, instead of patience, anger comes up. So whenever I get a patient who comes and tells me that, doctor, I need your help managing my anger, I'm like, let's look at your worry. What's worrying? What's going on in your head? Because that's probably what is causing the frustration and leading to the irritability and anger. The second thing that we're looking at changing over the next few months is the concept of bonding. So we all remember the warmth and the affection that we feel when we hold someone close and when we touch someone and hug them. But that's all going to change, right? In the next few months, even within homes, distancing has started, especially for those with very small children or very old parents. They're trying their best to maintain a distance so that they don't catch infections. Outside, it is even more. In fact, we hear so many reports of people getting extremely angry that people are not maintaining boundaries, or society is not allowing people enter in because of the fear of the virus. Physical touch is now going to be even more a change, because yes, with our closed ones, with the ones in our family, we are inevitably going to, experience the physical touch. But the amount of affection and, the amount of bonding that we would share with our friends earlier is going to change. This was highlighted to me so strongly when we went over. So Denver and I went over to one of our friends' places to wish him for his birthday with a little cake. And they came down to pick up the cake. And we just said, happy birthday, from the distance, without the hug and without the kiss on the cheek, which is such a usual part of our bonding. And for me, that is a bigger concern because the bonding naturally releases some chemicals known as endorphins in our brain. So that is why even when I come back stressed from work and I hug my kids, there is a release of those endorphins and I feel so much better. But now, the minute the kids run to me, I hold them at a distance and I say, Mama's just come from the clinic, wait till I finish my bath. And by the time I finish my bath, then I have to go find them. Of course, the hugs are still there, but it's not what it used to be when I used to come back from work before the lockdown. And the third thing that we're looking at an increase are anxieties. So a number of anxieties about distancing, about finances, about travel, about health, with all the different norms that come in, the changing ideas that keep coming up for us. Today, WHO says something, tomorrow it is something else. The government says something, tomorrow it is something else. And every single time we have to change. We have to adapt. We have to adjust with the new changes that are coming up. So what is it that we can actually do? In 2008, when the world went through a recession, McKinsey and Company published a study that said that the companies that bounced back, or the companies that showed the most resilience after the crisis, were the ones that had already put in place strategies for flexibility and adaptability. But this pandemic has been something none of us ever even imagined to see in our entire lifetime. So the question came to me that the pandemic is not in our control. What the government does is not in our control. What the place I'm working for does is not in my control. What my family does is not in my control. What the bank does is certainly not in my control. So what is actually in my control and what can I do? In mental health, we always focus on factors which are in my control, no matter how small those factors may be. And there are a few strategies that I have been sharing with my patients, which have proved to be helpful to them. And I'm going to share it with you today. To begin with, the first intervention that we need to look at is courage. We need to start thinking and acting more and more bravely. We cannot be terrified of this pandemic, and we cannot keep saying that, what if this happens? I'm too scared that this might happen. Yes, the fear is real, and there is no denying that. So we need to start getting more rationally and practically cautious. We need to bring up strategies that will help us move out safely and come back safely so that our environment is safe, even in times of struggle. For example, one of my biggest worries is always finances. Like Denver will always tell you that I am somebody who keeps worrying about, the finances that are going to come in. And one of the NGOs that I work with was going through a crisis at the beginning of this pandemic, and they decided to delay our salaries. In fact, we were not informed about it, and the salaries just didn't come in the account on the appointed date. And I was really, really worried about it. I immediately called up my financial advisor, asked him what to do. But after a while, I sat down and I said, okay, what's the worst that can happen? So let me think of what I can do to limit the amount of problem that I have to face. So whatever was outgoing, I tried to cut down on things. And whatever was coming in, I tried to see what I could do to make sure that it is safe and it doesn't get spent on unnecessary expenses. But my first response was fear. And all of us will experience that fear, and there's nothing wrong with experiencing that fear. The question is what we do after. What are the strategies that we put in place to face that fear? And remember that you will only be able to face the fear with courage if you use a rational thinking brain. If you jump into your anxious emotional brain, your brain will think of the worst possibility that can happen and will make it a real thing for you. This is what is going to happen, and 100% this is what is going to happen. So don't think of anything else. But you have to calm yourself down and tell yourself that rationally, these 5 are the different possibilities that can happen. Out of this has the maximum chance, this has the least chance. Let me see what I can do to enhance the chance of something positive happening. When we start thinking like this, our brain automatically generates more and more alternatives to sort out the problem. Because our brain is a thinking brain. But for centuries, we've had our emotional brain controlling everything that we think. So our emotional brain is always ready to take over the thinking brain. But when we use our innate courage, or when we try and gather up our courage and say, no, I will face this, our thinking brain gets the opportunity to calm down the emotional brain and say, okay, hang on, let me think this through, and then we'll figure out what to do. So the first intervention that we have to look at positively is definitely courage. The second thing that we need to look at through this pandemic is empathy. Now, empathy is not something that everybody gets very easily, right? The first response that I get when I ask people, what is empathy, is that I feel with someone, or I feel exactly how the other person feels. But that's not really possible, is it? Because you're not in the other person's shoes. So how do you experience empathy? It would require you to put in a bit of practice. So you would probably need to think of things from the other person's viewpoint. That is one. The second thing is ask. Always ask. Yesterday, I was running my OCD support group, and I run a support group for patients with obsessive compulsive disorder, which is run free online, now online, every month. One of the patients, so we had an agenda planned for the meeting, but one of the patients who joined the support group suddenly came up with the sharing that she had lost her mother in the last 1 month, and that she was going through a lot, and everybody pitched in, and everybody, offered their condolences, offered whatever, they could think of that would soothe her and help her through the process. And at the end of the meeting, one of us reached out to her and said that, we've all offered our suggestions, but what is it that you need? Because I can think that I know what the other person needs, but there's nobody better than the other person to tell me what they need. So reach out and ask people around you what they could be needing, whether it's employees, whether it is your colleagues, whether it's your staff, whether it is people who are working for you, whether it could be the person who, picks up the garbage from your house, or the maid who used to come to your house to cook and clean. You could ask and reach out and see what is it that the other person needs. We need to show empathy during this point of time. I have so many reports of couples fighting right now because one of the couple needs to go back to work, and the other person is also a working parent. but somebody needs to stay home. And one of the couple has, say the man has decided that I am going to go to work and you have to stay home and take care of the kids. And that's very frustrating for the woman, because the woman also needs to work, but there's also a lot more to do. So if the husband, without thinking and without asking, just says that, you know what, you deal with it, I have to go to work, that is not showing empathy at all. And I think we need to start by showing empathy within our homes. Our third intervention needs to be flexibility. What do I do to make sure that I am ready to change? Everybody is talking about adapting in the time of crisis. And yes, adapting is one of the crucial things. For us, it was a huge challenge. Most of the doctors that I spoke to, because everybody was used to seeing the patient face to face in the clinic. In fact, a lot of them did not even start online consults till maybe a week or two ago, because finally everybody's adjusting to the fact that even if the clinics do open up, there won't be as many patients coming in. So if you're going to be sitting, you are not going to see patients for a much longer period of time. So how flexible and how adaptable are you to adjust to the flow that has happened? For me, I was already seeing patients online, patients who have been abroad, who have consulted me with, in India and then moved abroad for their studies or for their work. And it was a very smooth transition for me from consulting in person to consulting online. My only challenge was that the government of India didn't have telemedicine guidelines in place. Once that came in place, it was one more additional thing. So a lot of us think, right now there are no rules in place. Why should I take the trouble of, keeping things ready? But remember, if you've kept things ready, it is much easier to smoothly transition challenges. And how flexible you are depends on how ready you are to change life may throw at you. So flexibility is going to be something that you need. And flexibility can come in a variety of ways. Try and see what areas of life you are being very rigid about and where you can bring about flexibility. Some of my patients come to me and say, but I can't change. I'm just like that. I cannot change. And that's also okay. That's completely okay. Flexibility is necessary, but sometimes it's not possible, right? And then what do you do when it's not possible? I remember at this point, I'm remembering what bears do during winter. What do? They go into hibernation. It's a crisis period for them, right? It's a period that they cannot sustain their living. So what do? They go into the cave, they conserve all their energy, they reduce all their energy expenditure, and they sleep and wait. Because patience is the key. If anything, the last few decades of our life have taught us that change is the only constant. So right now things are bad and it will change. Do I have the patience to wait through it? Patience is going to be one of the major things that is going to get you through this crisis. So don't let go of that patience. See where you can bring it into practice in your life. The past few weeks have shown us how important it is to include each and every person in the way we run through life. Because this is something that not only India is facing, it's not only something that China was dealing with, or something that is a problem in the US. If anything, everybody, rich, poor, everybody all across the world, healthy, unhealthy, everybody across the world is facing. And that is why it is more and more important that we understand that we are all one, we are all equal. The more we look at everybody as equal, the more we will generate options for us. So start looking at, this is not something for me. Start looking at how I can make this a part of my routine. How can I make this person a part of my routine? What option can this person offer to me? Look at every person and everybody around you as a way to be part of the whole, so that you can look at options that can be generated because of the inclusiveness that comes with being together. And lastly, as Denver always loves to tell me, that this pandemic has taught us how beautifully nature has bounced back. So I think another strategy to help us with our mental health and emotional well-being would be to look at nature. You know, there have been so many reports of pollution. There have been so many reports of how badly the oceans and the air and the forests are doing over the last few decades. And in fact, the last year has gone really bad in terms of events across the world. But 4-6 weeks of shutdown and things are bouncing back so beautifully. We see animals coming out, we see plants growing so beautifully. The air pure, you know, we've not seen this air pollution index in decades. So see the way nature has bounced back and look at that as a learning for yourself. To sum up the strategies that we can use for our emotional well-being during this period of crisis are courage, empathy, flexibility, patience, inclusion, and focusing on staying green. These are very important strategies, and some of them have really helped my patients tide through this crisis. I hope some of them help you too. This brings me to the end of my part of the presentation. I will be happy to answer any questions at the end of all the three speakers' presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vilona. That was extremely inspiring. And what really resonates with me is patience and inclusion. You know, in this fast day, we want everything as of yesterday, jackpot. But just sit back and wait is really what's important. Thank you so much. Well, it's time now to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Royston Briganza. A little introduction about him. Royston joined Grameen Capital in 2007 to launch the organization as CEO. He currently oversees all aspects of operations in India. Grameen Capital, founded by Grameen Foundation USA, IFMR Trust, and Citigroup, is a first of its kind social business enabling microfinance institutions and social enterprises of wider access to the capital markets. Grameen Capital is part of the global Grameen family of companies, the flagship of which is a Nobel Prize-winning Grameen Bank founded by Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus. To realize his dream of a capital with a conscious ecosystem, Royston, along with Grameen Capital, recently promoted Grameen Impact Investments India, a unique vehicle to provide debt financing to social enterprises across sectors such as affordable education and skill development, affordable healthcare, clean energy and innovation, agriculture, financial inclusion, and livelihoods. In his earlier assignment as a senior vice president with HSBC, Royston was instrumental in setting up and heading HSBC's microfinance and priority sector business. Prior to that, he was the head of HSBC's SME business. Before joining HSBC, Royston worked in Citibank India for over 8 years in various assignments across both the consumer bank and the corporate bank. In addition to being the former chair of Sadan, whose members had over 30 million women micro-entrepreneurs, he serves on many boards and advisory bodies, including Grameen Foundation India, Inclusive Business Action Network, IBAN, FICCI Financial Inclusion Committee, CII National Committee on NBFCs, the United Nations Microfinance Resource Group, Impact Investors Council, and Banking and Finance Committee of the Indian Merchant Chambers. He has been invited to address various programs in India and globally to promote impact investment and blended finance as a sustainable tool to eradicate poverty and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. In September 2018, Royston addressed a high-level event at the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York on the Sustainable Development Goals. The London-based Finance Monthly publication named Royston in their 2013 Global CEO Award winners list as the top 4 CEOs in Asia and top 2 in India, the other one being Kumaramangalam Birla. He has also been awarded the Global CSR Leadership Award by World CSR Congress and the Power of One Award by the Archdiocese of Bombay. Roshan has done his Masters in Management Studies from the prestigious Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies. Ladies and gentlemen, we are indeed honored and privileged to have Roshan Briganza, the CEO of Grameen Capital India Limited, to speak to us on job search strategies.
Thank you so much, Martin. I was just hoping that this should not become longer than my session, but it's a pleasure being with you all. A quick check, Martin, before you go on mute. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, you're clear.
Okay, cool. So with that, just want to thank everyone for being here this morning. I know it's a Sunday and normally lots of commitments on a Sunday. I'm going to share my screen so that you get a sense of the slides that I've put together. Give me
Roshan, speak a little louder.
Okay,
you're clear, but you're slightly soft.
Hold on. Let me try that. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And are you able to see the slides, Martin?
Yes, clear.
Okay. Is it better now? Can you see the slideshow?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to take about 18 minutes and take you through some of the global context and how we are coping with COVID. One of the big things that economists are now telling us is that we're not talking about rebooting post-COVID. In the months of March and April and May, we talked about post-COVID. I think one thing that's now becoming clear is that it is rebooting with COVID. And how do we get back to normal? The most, I think, used or abused word is the new normal. And therefore, what from a jobs perspective are we looking at? What are the search strategies going forward? And Martin, before I let you go, just want to make sure, can you see the next slide as well?
Yeah, very clear.
Okay, great. So I just want to make sure that the slides are moving. And I like this quote because it says there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. And pretty much summarizes what we are going through right now. We are seeing something that's unprecedented. We've never seen it before. And the world is suddenly becoming more VUCA than it has ever been. I used this slide in the United Nations General Assembly talking about the world becoming VUCA. It was relevant in 2017, 2018, 2019, but never more before is it more relevant than it is now. There is volatility, there is uncertainty, there is complexity, and there's ambiguity everywhere we look. Whether you look at a microcosm in a village in India where migrants are pouring in, being quarantined, household incomes are depleting, or whether you look at the world's largest economy with the US going, really ballistic with the Black Lives Matter and the violence sort of erupting out of the racial discrimination episode. There seems to be uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and volatility all across the world. Nearer home as well, this COVID pandemic has in some ways given us a whole new vocabulary, things that I'd never heard of before. Words like lockdown and social distancing have all become daily jargon. It's become part of our normal day, and including on the India now sort of is among the top 4 countries in terms of the number of cases. So irrespective of whether you talk to health experts or to economists, I think unanimous view is that the worst is not over. While some parts of the world, and yesterday Spain is opening up a couple of its islands for tourism, and the US is opening up a few of its states, and other parts of the world are opening up. India, in a phased manner, though it's opening up, is still not seen the peak of the COVID virus. And therefore, on the jobs front as well, this is something that we need to be conscious about. Because as I sort of open up the next few slides, I want you to keep thinking about how is this what are the implications of this for my sort of job seeking, job hunt, and productivity. And in fact, many of us, and the topic that I've been given providentially in a sense is about job loss. Yesterday, we celebrated in the church, in the Catholic Church, for those of you who are Catholic, the feast of, anyone wants to say on the chat? All of you know it. It's St. Anthony. And interestingly, he's the saint of things that are lost. And I was reflecting and I said, wow, we're talking about those who've lost jobs. Have we even considered, St. Anthony? And again, today we are on the Feast of Corpus Christi, which is the feast of the body and the blood of Christ. And we are all one body. 1 Corinthians 12 tells us that. So when one member suffers, all suffer. So when the country is suffering, when each of us are suffering, I'm glad that Dimensions is putting something like this together so that we can look at the situation we are in and try and find a way forward. Globally, the outlook is pretty gloomy. We're on course to lose $5 trillion of growth. Probably China is the only country with a V-shaped recovery right now. US is talking about a V or a W-shaped economy, or U-shaped economy, an L-shaped recovery. I mean, all of these are like an alphabet soup that people are throwing into the mix in terms of how is this recovery going to happen? What is this new economy? And geopolitical experts are telling us that there is a clear movement from a unipolar world where the US dollar was the hegemon, where the US economy was the global power, superpower, to a multipolar world. Now, is that going to include China? Is that going to include India? Is that going to include the Eurozone? And the jury is still out. China clearly is right up there. I mean, the joke with geopolitical experts is that China doesn't mind being number 2, only as long as there's no number 1. That gives you a window into the mind of China and how they're thinking about the economy going forward. And therefore, are we on the cusp of a third world war? Is the third world war already going on? Have we just not noticed it? The number of lives in the US that have been lost, the economy hit that has happened. How does a war look in this new age? Could that be a war that's going on under our very noses and we don't know? Are we collateral damage of the third world war and we don't know? And therefore, when we look at jobs and when we look at the economy, it's important for us to see that in that context of saying, how do we insulate ourselves from some of these global shocks that are happening? India herself has seen 5 lockdowns, and now you can sort of unlock 1.0 or whatever nomenclature you want to give it, but we're still in a very, very subdued state of the economy. Just yesterday, I was doing a review and we looked at about close to about 50% of corporates have reopened, but not as much as we want to. And therefore, whether RBI is infusing liquidity into the system, 20 lakh crore announcement by the Prime Minister, there seems to be effort, but clearly we're looking at a very, very low GDP, if not a negative GDP growth rate. So those are really, unfortunately or fortunately, the reality that we are facing. And the reason I said fortunately is because we are challenged, therefore, to use our creativity to see how can we respond in this new normal or this new paradigm. And therefore, what are these factors as the global demand shrinks and the supply shrinks and the negative GDP growth rate? Some people are saying it could be minus 0.2, could be -2, could be -5. We just don't know. RBI has not come up with a specific number, but the reality is that we are going to see a really contracted growth going forward. And that's not only India, but globally. This is going to be the case. Every country in the world is going to be looking at these challenges on the GDP numbers as well, in terms of seeing where we are. This is just a sort of snapshot for those of you who are, working with clients overseas. Again, you need to be aware of the fact. Yesterday, there seems to be a move in the US for President Trump to close all H-1B visas. Whether you're working in the Middle East, there seems to be a growing momentum about people losing their jobs there and coming back into India and other Asian countries. Again, what are those implications for my own career, my own job, opportunities that are going to be opened up for me or closing up for me? And in that context, really, there is this worrying number of about 25% job losses that have happened in the recent few months. And irrespective of the media that you look at, the situation seems to be quite dire. Is the intent of this morning's presentation to scare you? Surely not. Is it to give you a reality window into what's happening in the economy? Hopefully, yes, because you need to have your plans tempered with, built upon or realism that comes from the environment around. So whether it is, the restaurant sector that we see going to be greatly hit, whether it is, clearly the sectors around aviation and tourism that are going to be clearly hit. And then the good news side, the areas in IT, which is going to be booming. We are seeing billions upon billions flowing into Reliance Jio from investors over the last 2 weeks. And it's clearly a trickle that turned into a flood, which is now a spate and an ocean of flooding of funding that's coming in to the tech sector. And that is a sign of where the economy is heading as well. So those of you who are trying to say, what could my future job look like? Unlikely that it would not have a technology element to it. Whether you are a fitness trainer, and today PE with Joe, my son and I do this workout daily using a trainer on YouTube, or is it a cooking channel? And we see Father Warner doing a cooking show about his food and then doing scripture study along with cooking. And so we are asked and we are invited to challenge and reposition ourselves into the way we are looking at the new opportunities and the new normal. Can I become a tuition teacher online? Am I able to do classes on WhatsApp video and YouTube? Is there an opportunity for me there that was not there earlier because I couldn't leave my house and all the tuition teachers used to go visiting the children? And now suddenly with technology and with in the sort of working with COVID scenario, is that an opportunity opening up for me? In banking and finance, a lot of things are moving online. Is there an opportunity for me to be able to look at, the vagaries of the stock market? Do I need to do a course there? How do I reskill myself? So I think what's opening for us really is a wide canvas of opportunities. I'm not sure if you can read the slide on top, but it talks about in red the sectors that are really stressed. So that's aviation, tourism, hospitality, transport and logistics. On the other extreme, sectors that are doing really well, healthcare and pharmaceutical, agriculture and horticulture. And then the sectors in the middle, construction, again, a problem, consumer durables, apparel, textiles, IT, automobiles, financial services. And so that's really the spectrum or the canvas of the economy as we look at ourselves and situate ourselves, our jobs, and what we are looking at in this space. I won't go much into this. We've talked about each of the sectors, but there are some sectors that are significantly pained. And if you are in one of those sectors, it's about, sort of introspecting and seeing, as Vinona talked about, patience. Do I have the patience to wait this out? Do I have the capacity to wait this out? Do I need to be making a move into something else? And when we come to some of the strategies or the job strategies to deal with COVID, let's talk about that then and figure out what's the opportunity that's being given to me in this space. So irrespective, I think agriculture is one sector that's likely to see a huge boom. And so the opportunity really, we have 40% of the workforce in this country, but only 15% of the GDP is contributed by agriculture. So there's a huge gap of unproductive agriculture. How do we improve productivity in agriculture? Am I a techie? Can I build an app? Can I find a way to bring farm to fork? Can I find a way to look at sustainable agriculture? Can I look at organic farming? People today are very conscious about how many hands are touching the product till it comes to my house. Is there a way that I can build a business solution that sort of brings it straight from the farms, from the horticulture, from the orchards, and back to the houses? And therefore, opportunities that are being opened up to us if we are able to really think deeply, look creatively, and explore what's really happening in the economy around us. Since we talked about job strategies, I want to talk about sectors that there could be an opportunity to look at. Clearly, we're seeing NGOs today and others, including housewives, looking at face masks as an opportunity. There's an opportunity in sanitizers. A lot of probably even Dimension members reached out to me saying, we're manufacturing sanitizers, we're manufacturing pedal sanitizers, sensor-based sanitizers. So that's, again, a big opportunity as companies open up. This week it was 10% workforce, next week 33, then 50. Every office is supposed to have sanitizers. How is that going to be playing out as a business model? Is that something that gives you an opportunity to look at? Is there capacity in your factories that could be diverted to that? Louis Vuitton is making face masks. I mean, just gives you a perspective about the opportunity. Of course, those are going to be more expensive than your car, but the fact is that there is an opportunity for every segment, and therefore let's not get and this is where I'm pivoting to. Let's not get into a pessimistic zone. Everything is contracting, everything is going down, everything is tanking. It's going to be a miserable world ahead. To say, if I'm humble enough, if I'm creative enough, if I'm hardworking enough, what is that opportunity that this is opening up for me? I often tell people 10 years ago, there was no WhatsApp, there was no Uber, there was no Ola, there was no Oyo, there was no Airbnb. And today, these have become synonymous words with everyday work, everyday operations. So it just needs a new idea. And sometimes you're forced, a bad situation, in fact, forces you to think creatively and to come up with something new and innovative. And so in the last 5 minutes, I want to focus on what could be these possible strategies, whether it's healthcare or education or agriculture or sanitation, where there is likely to be an opportunity. How do I think these through in terms of making this, turning this challenge into an opportunity? So the challenge is existing. There's no doubt about it. But can I make that challenge an opportunity? Pretty much like, earlier, everyone was paranoid about screen time. And, you heard from the pulpit some sermons about, how we're getting addicted to screens. And yet today, we are able to see and worship because of the screen. There's mass and there are holy hours and there's a whole lot of catechesis happening on screens. So the new paradigm is that none of these are either good or bad. They're agnostic. What we make of it is what makes it good or bad. Technology in itself is not good or bad. What you do with it makes it good or makes it bad. And therefore, how do we look at this new normal? Some quick trends of behavior that we are seeing, which could also help you to think about what could my job be? What could my future career be? What could I be looking at as an entrepreneur? We're seeing a flight to value. No more people are buying high value tickets, but they are buying more bulk and buying cheaper. And that's what Vinona talked about, the bear in the hibernating. How do I tighten my belt? People are moving to health, hygiene, and protection. People are moving from cure to prevention. More stockpiling is likely to happen, which is why bulk buying is likely to happen. Proximity shopping, online shopping, from buying just in time to buying just in case. I was in a conversation with the Amazon head in India a couple of weeks ago, and these were some of the trends. They're selling 300 times more carom boards and Ludo sets than they did earlier. Their sales in the gardening section of seeds and implements have gone up. Yoga, yoga mats, sports equipment, all that's gone up. So there's very interesting trends that are happening. Is there an opportunity opening up for me as I see some of these trends? And that's the purpose of sharing this with you. It's not to say, just from an academic perspective, from an economist perspective. No, it's about from a practical perspective. Where are these sectors that gives me an opportunity, that gives my skill set an opportunity, or do I need to add on a skill set to be able to latch on to this opportunity? And therefore, what can I do about it? Well, Vinona talked about surrounding yourself with positive people. This is a little bit of a pun on the word positive. So you must surround yourself with positive people as long as they're not COVID positive. But this is the strategy that I think we need to follow to be able to plan for the future. Matthew 6:33 tells us clearly, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all the rest will be added to you. Do even try that. Often, even in my own case, I said, things are so busy, I just don't have time. And two things I always complained about: no time for exercise, no time for prayer. In the last 3 months, and I've often said to myself, if I don't do it now, when I have the time, when I'm in lockdown, that means it was not an excuse of not enough time, but just not enough desire. And so, first of all, I've lost 7 kgs in the last 3 months, thanks to my son who's been pushing me to work out. And now I'm pushing him. But the fact is that if you set your mind to it, it can be done. And the same thing with prayer. Are you on your knees asking the Lord to show you opportunities, what He wants of you, what is the purpose He has for you in your life, and really seeking His will, really putting Him first, really pulling out areas that are not of His kingdom that are in your life? Because God will not let you down. If you are faithful to Him, He is always faithful. And therefore, I urge you, and I'm not saying this as a preacher, neither am I saying it as an economist, but I'm saying it as someone who's journeyed in this career path, in this vagary of the economy, all these 20 years, and have seen God's faithfulness in the down times, especially in the down times. And so seek Him first. What is His purpose? The Japanese have a nice word called ikigai, which I want you to take a screenshot if you have a phone that you're on right now. Very interesting. It is finding what is your purpose, or ikigai, doing what you love, doing what the world needs, doing what you're good at, and what can you be paid for. And if you then look at those concentric circles and come to the one space that is overlapped by all four, you are able to zone into what really makes you happy, which can be helpful for others, which can also earn you an income, and which can really make the world a better place. And therefore, after this talk, sometime tonight or whenever you have time, reflect on this. Reflect on Matthew 6:33. Spend some time in prayer, and then sit down with a pen and paper and put this down. And it may actually help you to create a map for yourself. The next one is, what are the opportunities that are there? And one of the things that we're trying to do is to create a portal or a platform. How do we really bring job givers and job seekers together? We're trying to work with Dimensions, with Bombay Catholic Sabha as part of the social apostolate of the Archdiocese of Bombay, and create this portal. So any of you online who are listening, who are good at tech, who can build a digital marketplace or a platform, just message me, message Denver, message anyone in Dimensions, and they'll get in touch with me and say that you're ready to chip in. But I believe that between Christian businessmen and Christians in different organizations and people who are of goodwill, we can find a portal and we can create something which can find jobs, not only for Christians, not only for Catholics, but of all people who are struggling at this point in time. How do we build this to offer a livelihood and really a new opportunity to people? Point 3, so there are the standard web portals that exist. You should be putting out your CV and looking at what's happening there. But we are also looking at building our own so that we get an opportunity to bring our people together for a long time. And the other one is, Vinona talked about this, patience. Wait and worry not. It's important for us to use this time to pause. At the same time, estimate how long is this wait going to be? It may be 6 months. Am I ready mentally, financially to wait 6 months? If not, what is my plan of action? What do I need to do? Can I wait for that ideal job after 6 months if I don't have money for my family next month? And therefore, do I need to change? Do I need to switch to a new career? Do I need to use this time productively to build a new skill set? And therefore, this waiting need not be just in itself, but how do I use this time, not only sitting on the gadget, because this can become very addictive. And this is happening to our young people 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. And therefore, it's important for us to take time away from the gadget as well to be able to reflect and pause. Entrepreneurship, I'm not going to talk much because the next speaker, who is much more equipped and more interesting than me, is going to talk about it. But I want you to consider the social sector. There are 17 goals of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Each of these is going to be attracting significant capital. $30 trillion is expected to flow into this space. If you can identify one of these goals and you want to take a screenshot of this and see whether what you're doing fits into one of these, then there are possibilities to get funding both from the banks and multilateral organizations for this initiative as well. There is a blend of the social sector, right from the NGOs to the for-profit world that are investing in impact, in creating good and doing good while doing well at the same time. So it's not necessarily an NGO It's a social business that makes money both for the company and for the promoter, but also does good at the same time. Because today, a lot of people are getting left out. The common man is getting left out. Winona talked about inclusion. The rich are happy, protected from the rain, but the poor are exposed. We're seeing that with the migrants going back. We're seeing that with the job loss situation that's happening. How can I be a job giver instead of a job seeker? Can I create an employment? Can I create a company? Can I create an enterprise that brings value and that can really latch on to an opportunity in this COVID situation? And finally, reskilling. In the Archdiocese of Bombay, we're exploring, can we create a skilling infrastructure that pools together all the skilling programs that are going on in the Archdiocese and then looks at what are the new skills that our people need. A lot of retrenchment is happening between 40 and 55 years old. And it's difficult to find a new job there. How do we reskill people who are losing their jobs? How do we skill them in line with the jobs that are likely to open up? So if you have any ideas and suggestions here, please give them to us as well, because this is something that we are very keen to do, to create a skilling platform, a reskilling platform, to be able to create new jobs. And finally, repositioning ourselves. And in some ways, it's a funny one because this is my own brother. But just last night, he was singing with Usha Uttap, and they had about 1,500 live audience. And tonight he's singing at 9:30 p.m. So you can go on Facebook, you can take a screenshot of this or look him up on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. But the reality is that people are repositioning. He's a musician, but now he's finding a new normal in the way music is being done, and it's becoming a huge hit. So how do we create this new world where we are able to give people hope? Thank you for your time, and it's been wonderful sharing this with you.
Thank you very much, Royston. That was very insightful and a lot of tips for us to think about. And in case any of you have questions, yeah, we're opening up the questions at the end of after the third speaker. And I really encourage you to share your thoughts and have a dialogue with the speakers. All right, moving on to our third speaker, Raymond D'Souza. He was a model seminarian and respected and diligent professional. He reached the peak of his employee career at a national level position at the group headquarters of one of India's most successful companies, and was suddenly sacked after his next job switch. He was unemployed, confused, depressed, and lonely for several months. He went down physically, emotionally, spiritually, and subsequently financially, until he realized God wanted him to climb a different mountain. Realizing that if this can happen to him, it could happen to others too. This experience became the pivot point of his transition from a profession to a vocation. All of his past coalesced into a burning desire to irreversibly empower others who fall into the same boat, to elevate their game and move them to higher levels of professional and social contribution through commercial and social enterprise. He evolved as a trainer, a facilitator, and a business coach. Today, he is the only business coach in India offering 6 levels of progressive entrepreneurial growth and expansion to those committing themselves to his path of passion-based entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you Coach Raymond D'Souza. He will speak to you on creating livelihood through entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Martin, for your very, very kind words. And Denver, could you share the screen and we can begin? So thank you, everybody, for making it present today. And as you can see from the introduction, I was where many of you might be today. So it is very nice to know that someone has been there and has made it through. And if that person can do it, so can you. So let's go to the next slide. And this is about just doing a little bit of revision from the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. So then next slide. Robert Kiyosaki explained to us the significance of our school system. He makes us understand that our educational system was designed to create two categories of people: workmen and soldiers. These were the two categories that the education system was designed to create. Let's go one step even further back. The educational system evolved in the industrial age, and this was preceded by the agricultural age. So people were in the fields, they knew what was happening, and they were able to uh, be part of nature. The industrial age required everybody to do routine work and not be able to move about. You had to be in windowless barracks doing repetitive work. It was not easy to condition people to get into this mode. Believe it or not, our educational system was designed to program us to become robots like this. Let me illustrate this with an example.
Raymond, just a minute. Raymond, just a minute. The slides are not changing. Denver, could you please? The slides on the screen are not changing.
No problem. You handle that. I'll continue.
Okay.
So just imagine this Raymond D'Souza in kindergarten. Just visualize the small child. They're all walking in line. Line is something we have heard from KG. So we are traveling, we are walking in line, and little Raymond steps out of line. And promptly the teacher will call out.
The slides are working now. The slides are working now.
Raymond, get in line. Anybody who steps out of line is asked to get in line. We learned pretty early that that is very important to comply, and compliance was drilled into our mind. A second thing that we were programmed for is to follow instructions. So you just listen and do it. What are soldiers programmed to do? Yours not to question why, yours but to do and die. And this is what school was programming all of us. Now this is the tragedy. Those of us who did well in school will struggle in business. Why? Because let's look at one more scenario. Exams are going on, and Raymond looks at another student and takes help. What do we call this? We call this as copying. But what is Raymond thinking that he is doing? Raymond is cooperating. So this is the two different ways in which we have been conditioned. You are supposed to work alone. So all our studies we have to do alone. We get programmed to operate alone. And when you get into the work field, you are expected to cooperate with everybody else. And then we wonder why we have problems in society, in our families, and in the workplace. So this is something we need to recognize. Those who finish from school move to the left side of those two squares called quadrants. So the first thing that you do is take up a job. And in case you don't know, the full form of this acronym job called chest over broke. And we do that. And how do we grow as an employee? We will build on our resume. We will build on our experiences. And we will also build on our education. What are the other ways we do it? We may, if we have the opportunity, handle two jobs, or we may change jobs, or we may even change geographies if the same job in another country pays us better. What we fail to realize is, irrespective of what we do, we are still caught in that box. And this is what is called as the rat race, which even if we win, we end up being rats. Sometimes those who are employed feel they are making their employer rich. Why not do the same thing for us? So what do? They step out and start something on their own. They become self-employed. Now they find when they were employed, they got a monthly salary. But now that they are self-employed, they get paid after everybody's paid and if something is left. So they discover they stepped from the frying pan into the fire. What is common to both employed and self-employed is there is a common paradigm, and that the root of that paradigm is you are exchanging time for money. So this is what, whether you are employed or self-employed, there is no leverage. This is what you are doing, exchanging time for money. And between the left two quadrants and the right two quadrants, even though that line seems very thin, it is a thick, invisible barrier, which most people find very difficult to change. All the more reason if they find that they had done well academically. It may not apply to all, but many. And this is why you will also realize many people who dropped out of school have not only done well, maybe they have become millionaires, if not billionaires. Why is this so? Because what is required in entrepreneurship is not taught in our schools. So at this point in time, let me explain to you what is a paradigm. A paradigm is a complete system of our beliefs, of our values, of the way we think, the way we relate, the way we process information, our skill sets, everything put together. To give you an external metaphor, a car is a paradigm, a tractor is also a paradigm. You can't take the big wheels of the tractor and put it on the car hoping to go faster. You can't take bits and pieces of one paradigm and put it into another paradigm to get the benefit. This is something very important to understand. So when you are employed, you have to operate in that model. It works. But when you become self-employed, the mistake we make is we continue operating with the same mindset. When we try to become enterprise owners, we are operating with the same earlier mindset. This is not possible. It will not work. So this is where I'm explaining these four quadrants so that you realize that each requires a very, very different paradigm. Can we move ahead, Martin? What are the skills that we need to learn in business that will get us ahead? Okay, now I've divided these shifts that we need to make into 6 different parts. So here I'm talking about the physical kind of skills that you might need to learn. And the first thing you need to remember is discipline. When you are on your own, you will find that you wake at whatever time you feel like, you will work whenever you feel like, and you will sleep whenever you feel like. This is where if you are not disciplined, you cannot move ahead. Discipline is a foundational building block. You look at any achiever at whatever level, they will not be able to sustain that level without discipline. This is your root. And discipline means doing what is required, not doing what is comfortable. What are the other skill sets that we need to do? Sales. If you cannot sell, you cannot feed yourself and the family. It is as simple as that. It is again a very, very critical skill. Most people who make their transition to business have a very steep sales learning curve. You have to learn how to sell. If you don't promote yourself, your business, and your offerings, nobody else will. It is a learnable skill. You need to learn that, apart from all the others that are spelled out. Next. When we come to the next skill, what is important is vision. If you do not have a clear, vivid, and a very inspiring vision, you will find you are not able to make the headway that you need. Neither are you able to relate in an inspiring way to others. So this is something very, very foundational. You can also, as part of your vision, be clear about how you could progress as an entrepreneur. And I've given some steps over here which you can read. Okay, you can begin as a professional. You can and do that just as a proprietor. Very little compliances, very easy to start. You can just open a current account and you can get moving. Next, little more complicated, you can partner with somebody else. Little more complicated, you can have a limited liability partnership. Then you can take it even further as you grow and your turnover is in crores. You have got many more clients. You can have a private limited company. And then if you're really ambitious and you want to take things ahead and you are able to handle all the compliances that come along with it, you could even go public and have a public limited company starting with your IPO. And this is how you can continue to grow. Next. Hard part is about passion and compassion. You can be a brilliant intellectual, but if you're not emotionally strong, you will never succeed in business. This is something you have to learn. You have to be able to take the rough and tumble of business. There will be times where there is no money. There will be times when payments have to be made. There will be times when you are faced with rejection, when nobody wants to buy your products and services. Without emotional strength, you cannot deal with these issues. And this is where this is something you really have to work on. And this is, you cannot just leave out. For many entrepreneurs, often this is their biggest strength. Next. Okay, now we come to the spiritual side. And this is something as Christians, as Catholics, we have an edge over others, wherein this is sometimes our strongest point, going according to what we have learned over the ages. However, we may have also inculcated some limitations. And these are the limitations I would like to point out to you today. So, one of the things is we may have internalized a mindset of scarcity, whereas the Bible actually tells us that we need to focus on abundance. You look at all the kings, you look at even earlier to the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they were all rich and wealthy. They had lands, they had livestock, they had everything material in terms of their comfort. They were prosperous. You look at the kings, they were known for opulence. You look at down the line. So, somewhere we may have internalized this scarcity mindset, and this is something we need to correct. And there is a quote there from John 10:10. But I have come that they may have life, life in all its fullness. Let's go to the next slide and go even deeper on this, because this is something which can be a big bugbear to many, many of us as Christians and as Catholics especially. So I'm now getting into depth into the parable of the talents. And the version I'm using of the Holy Bible is the New International Version. So in Matthew 14:15, he gave 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent, each according to his ability. And this can be literally being held for us, that each one of us has been given a talent according to our ability. Matthew 16, the man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. Let's go down. Do you notice in the New Community Bible, the literal words are went at once to do business. The word business is used in this Catholic edition of the New Community Bible. It is not telling us to take jobs, it is telling us about business. 17. So also the one with the 2 talents gained 2 more. So this is where we are called to be productive. Next, verse 19. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. So here in this Bible, it's talking about accounts and accountability. Verse 21. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Here is the promise of prosperity. Verse 25. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. This is inaction caused by fear of failure. And this is not taken kindly too. Look at the response that comes next. Verse 28. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. A definitive transfer of wealth. Verse 29. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. This is the promise and the reward of abundance. What happens to the other one? Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. Note the sheer ruthlessness of the sentence. I'm reading verse 29 again. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. This is the reward of lack. Verse 30. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. My dear brothers and sisters, you must live and demonstrate your worth through measurable contribution. 5 talents became 10, 2 talents became 4. Next, habits. Relentlessly, you have to develop a new kind of perception. You need to learn to recognize opportunities. Where does this come from? Through your mind, not through your eyes. So irrespective of what you see, the way you interpret it is matters. And so you have to turn this into an unconscious habit where you're able to relentlessly recognize, capitalize, and monetize opportunities. This is a learnable skill. You must develop this. This is the root of business acumen and business ability. And those are some of the skills I put over there, which you need to develop. Next. The last critical shift that you need to make is about the kind of productivity that you need to have. So you need to have 3 kinds of productivity: personal, business, and financial. These are the 3 things that you need to have. I'm repeating this: personal, business, and financial productivity. When you are monitoring these and you are growing this productivity, that is how you will be able to grow and expand. And the key metric that you need to measure is the value of your time. Please make a note of that. Next. So here I'm giving you 6 steps which you can go through. Royston Braganza spoke about Ikigai, and this is where I'm giving you part of that reference over here. There are 3 ways, 3 steps: action, traction, attraction. So we have all heard about the law of attraction. I'm giving you 6 steps by which you can actually make the law of attraction work for you in business. How is it? 1 is know and live your God-given passions. So this is where you need to make a transition from competence to passion. In our job, as professionals, we focused on our competence and we killed our passions. Now is the opportunity for you to give life to those passions and make that transition. Second step is to know and use your unique God-given ability, and you need to invest more than 50% of your time doing both these actions. That is when you will start seeing a difference in the results that you get. Even though you may take the right actions, you may not get traction. To get traction, you need to do two different things. What are they? One is to be a trustworthy niche expert. This, this is a term I have coined. What does it mean? One is you need to be trustworthy. You can be trustworthy, you will still not succeed in business. You could be a niche expert, still not good enough because there will be others also who are niche experts, but they may not be trustworthy. So this is where when you're a trustworthy niche expert, all three things come together: being trustworthy, being an expert, and being an expert of a niche which you can lead and dominate. Next thing that you can do, step number 4, is to nurture your own personal uplifting network. Again, a term I have coined. What does this mean? You cannot grow alone. You need somebody with you. Jesus said, where two or more are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. This is where your spouse becomes the most critical person in the success of your business. When the two of you are aligned, you will find that you get amazing results in your business. If there is lack of harmony between the two of you, you will find you will struggle. Irrespective of what you do, you will not get desired results. So the first person that you need to have in your personal uplifting network is your spouse. Another very important person you need is your coach or mentor. This is where you will find you get somebody who is committed to your success, who is able to help you to know your strengths and differentiate them from your weaknesses, will help you to get focused and will help you identify your blind spots and the mistakes which you can avoid. This is not a cost. It is an investment that will give you multiple returns. Coaching is not for everybody. It is only for the best who want to be the best. And this is why you will find top achievers like Sachin Tendulkar or Virat Kohli will have coaches. The others will be average. How do you get attraction? Attraction requires again two different steps. One is to be a person of character. You can do the first 4 steps right, but if you mess with your character, you will find that you have destroyed wealth. It does not work. And the sixth step is about discerning and fulfilling your God given purpose. You are here for a reason. You need to discern it. When I lost my job, I was totally confused. I was broken. I did not know what was happening. I remember walking on the crowded streets of Fort, crying, what does God want from me? And my entire journey has just not been planned. But each time when I look back, I realize how God has prepared me for what was coming next, for what He really wanted me to do in this life. And this is what I invite each one of you to do. Everything that happens in your life, you may think it's a tragedy, but there is a divine purpose. You need to reflect on it. You need to look at it with a different set of eyes as to what is the opportunity in it and what is it that God is calling you to. With this, I end my session and I'm going to hand over to Denver for the next slide, wherein he will tell you what all the Dimensions team has prepared to help you in your journey ahead. These sessions were only to give you an introduction as to what is possible. Thank you for the time that you've given to me. God bless you. Over to you, Denver.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, participants, for being there throughout this 1 hour, and I hope we have added a lot of value. I just want to continue from where Raymond took off, is that as Dimensions one of our main objectives and our vision is to encourage Christian entrepreneurship. And this is where we will be in this space and trying to help any of you who want to start your own business. And to take this ahead, we have planned a couple of sessions ahead. If you are interested in it, we will be sending a link thereafter to your email IDs which you have registered with. And please fill up the form and then we will get in touch with you ahead. These are free sessions. We won't be charging for them. They were very basic sessions. And I hope some of you all will try and become entrepreneurs. So this brings us to the end of our session. We will be taking questions now. So if there is anybody who would like to ask a question, please do raise your hand. I will unmute your mic and you can then ask your question to our panelists. So yes, I'll just remind you, our panelists were Dr. Velona, Austin, Briganza, and Raymond D'Souza. So if anybody would like to ask any question, kindly raise your hand and our panelists would be very glad to answer it. You may also type the question out in the chat.
If you're asking the question, kindly unmute and ask.
They would need to raise their hand because then I'll unmute the mic.
Mr. Ruben has a question, Denver.
Martin, you can go ahead. I'm not able to see the question.
No, he raised his hand.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we have Alfred here. Alfred?
Yes, hello. Thank you for this very important session that I've been a part of. It's been very helpful. I have a very unique situation here. I did lose my job and I am trying to make sure that my opportunities expand. I'm trying to get into further education. But as you see, the pandemic has caused a lot of problems around the world. So I am looking forward to understand how would it fare if I study here in India or if I go abroad, and what are my chances to get through to an institution where I can advance my skill set and get me a better opportunity.
Whom is the question addressed to, Alfred?
Well, I was just wondering who can answer this question for me, because I am.
Yes. Okay, got that. Fine. So
I think Royston can take this.
So thanks, Alfred. And, I can imagine how tough the scenario is because there's been really a strain on jobs, and sorry for, situation that you find yourself in. Just a couple of points in terms of what sectors, if you need to study further, where jobs are likely to see a growth. Tech and IT is likely to be a big sector. Information systems, strategy, research. These are all areas where people are going to look for specialization, artificial intelligence, data analytics, because everything moving online is going to generate just enormous amounts of data, and how does one use these as a strategic business decision making process. So that's one important one. And the other point I wanted to mention is there are foundations which are providing scholarships for higher studies. So if you can identify or search for those online, then you could use those for working in other sectors and finding out new areas to work in. So those are the 2 points that I had. But if anyone else, Raymond or Velona wants to add.
Yeah, sure. Alfred, I think others will need to please mute yourself. Alfred, I'm just would like to hold the mirror to you. So what happens is now you are looking at another job or another opportunity, and the mindset is still in terms of studying and building competence, looking at qualifications. So I'm just holding the mirror to you. to just look at a different way of doing this. Identify what your passions are. You can go online, do something called a passion test. You will get to know what your passions are, and then choose something which is in line with that. When you do this, the chances of you liking what you do and contributing more will be greater. That is a simple suggestion that I do. Then it's a matter of where you get the best opportunity, whether you get it over here or abroad. But don't focus only on building your competence, de-link from your passion. Thank you.
Denver, you're on mute.
Xavier.
Can you
Hello?
repeat what you said, Denver? We missed that.
Yeah, I just told Xavier to come in next.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. Myself, Xavier. I'm from Vadodara. I completed my post-graduation in MBA in the year 2016. I was working as a financial analyst. That was just a term, but the work was like data analysis and data entry type. And after that, I started doing business, and it was related to health and wellness industry, which is the upcoming trillion-dollar industry. And it is been said by an US economic advisor, Dr. Paul Zane Ziller. But the things started to, there was a slight downfall in my vertical since March 2018 till July to December 2017. It was going quite well. About this concept, the business of 21st century, the book has been written by by Robert Kiyosaki, about whom Sir Raymond had told. And on this concept, I was working it on. I found myself, my passion in that I'm good at networking. And also likewise, along with that, I was learning about how to communicate well and how to brief up the things. And likewise, how to increase my network at a peak. Likewise, I did made a lot of network as well. But on the other hand, this COVID also brought a big negative effect on my business. But still, in this business, I have not decided to give up. But on the other hand, I have decided to also to get into corporate life back, which I'm still lacking. And in that also to get an experience, because I do have a dream apart from this networking or direct selling business.
Xavier, can I come in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I can see that you love to speak. Okay. So you are very much an extrovert. So one small input I would like to give you, you are focusing on the business. I'm inviting you to focus on yourself. So there are 5 kinds of people. Okay. So you can make a note of this, even others. So innovators.
Sir, there was a disconnection because of network. I want to you to focus on yourself. From that, I was not able to hear properly.
I got that. I got that.
Yeah, please, sir.
Okay. So there are 5 kinds of people or entrepreneurs: innovators, extroverts, sensory, introverts, and spiritual minded. These are the 5. If you are an extrovert, you need to focus on relationship building, not in selling the business or products or services. You need to focus on building relationships, and you need to know what is it that will make a difference to them. When you take this approach, you will find that irrespective of the business that you are in, it will grow. But if you focus on making money, which is by selling the business, the products, the services, you will find you will lose relationships and you will not go ahead. So this is the difference between the way you are going about it and what I'm proposing to you. You need to know yourself, and then accordingly, you need to handle the business accordingly. Next,
we have another question now for Dr. Vilona. This is from Ivo D. May I ask for suggestions, advice on how to maintain a healthy work-life balance given the increase in work from home timeframes?
Okay. So thank you for that question. Maintaining a work-life balance is a challenge right now, because we're all working at crazy times. We really don't know whether to respond to work emails when they come in after, after the time. Boss is expecting us to respond even late into the night. People running meetings at any time of the day or night because, somebody is available somewhere else in the world at that time. So one thing is, we need to set a personal boundary and personal limits for ourselves. If we don't do this, it is going to be difficult. This is something that I struggled with myself. And in the field that I work in, people reach out to me at any time of the day or night. So it was really difficult for me to set a boundary and say that, I cannot respond to calls if it comes late in the night. But what really helped was understanding where my boundaries are and what boundaries to stick to. And now I am managing a little bit better in terms of, adjusting my work-life balance. So through the lockdown, I've been able to maybe, set my weekends aside, keep time available for chores at home. I don't know how it's going to last while work restarts, but for now, this is what is working out. So the best thing that you can do is set a limit, try and stick to it as far as possible. That's going to be the first challenge that you have.
We have another question for Mr. Sequeira, Diego Sequeira. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
My question to you, to Denver and Royston, that I am looking out for business loan. There are various schemes government has announced, but nothing is helpful to me. Is there any way, like, how can I get the loan for business to start with a small business and all? Because I was working and I lost a job.
So I think it's important for us to know that in the current context, the banks are also hesitant. There is, first of all, existing businesses that are having their lines frozen by banks. So from a practical perspective, someone who's lost their job starting a new business would be required to fund their existing or initial plans with equity. Then debt will come in. So if you have a business idea, I think it's important first to find an angel investor, to find someone who can seed fund that along with your own capital, because they want to see you put skin in the game. And therefore, it's important for us to think through the steps of being an entrepreneur. It's along with the passion, along with what is good and what you like. It's about creating a business model, creating something that's unique, creating something that has scale potential. Do you have the capital? Do you have the resources yourself? How do you build a capital structure? Where does the equity come from? When is the right time to raise equity? When debt? So it's a complicated situation, as opposed to saying I have a running business and I need to get funding. A lot of the schemes announced by the government, whether it's the SIDBI, whether it's the MSME refinance, whether it is the PLTRO, are for providing liquidity to banks for on lending to businesses that are stuck. For a new business, to someone who's lost their job, it's a bit impractical to think banks will start lending there. I'm trying to be clear upfront so that I don't create wrong perceptions and not help you to manage your own expectations in this. But Denver, being a businessman, you want to chip in? Feel free.
Yeah, Mr. Sequeira, my basic recommendation would be to attend the follow-up sessions that we are having for entrepreneurs, because there we will cover various aspects on first and foremost your business plan, on a viable business plan. So for banks or for anyone to lend money, they need to be reassured that they will get the money back.
Okay.
So the first step would be to ensure that you have a plan and you make a presentation to anyone. Just to tell them, okay, if you invest money with me, this is how I'm going to pay you back. And thereafter, we will take it ahead from there. We will guide you through this process. So I would recommend attend the follow-up sessions, and we could help you out. It's very
Denver,
difficult to give you a 1 minute advice.
Denver, can I just come in?
Yeah, please.
For that 1 minute answer.
Okay.
So in the 6 steps that I spelled out, if someone can put that on the screen, this is precisely why when you take these 6 steps, you will find money coming to you instead of you chasing money. How does it work? When you live your passions And when you are acting through your God-given talent, people will start noticing you. Second is when you become a trustworthy niche expert, and when you're connected to people who have got access to resources, then getting finances, getting connected, getting clearances is not at all a problem. So you need to just do the first 4 steps and you will find money just coming to you. So here it is on your screen. Action. Take the right actions. Okay. Follow your passions, live your passions and your God-given talent. Very, very important to do this. When you do this, you will be living your life so enthusiastically, you will get noticed. You will be doing things right and it will be coming easily to you. And when you are a trustworthy niche expert and when you are connected with the right people, as Denver is saying, you get connected with us, people will notice, then funding you is not a problem. Money chases value. 3 words you need to remember. Money chases value. Right, Denver?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sequela. We have another question for Dr. Vilona. How to build resilience given the various risks we face? This is by Anthony Rose.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you for that question. So resilience is something that is an area of passion for me as well, because I have seen some patients really bouncing back fantastically after stressors and illnesses. And I have seen some who crumble even with the first stressor that comes their way. So I have tried to understand which are the factors in the brain, which help build up resilience. And a few of these things are, what I have outlined in the presentation. What helps is working on things consistently. You're not going to get there, like now in a crisis, when you try to work on bouncing back, that will be one step towards it. But once you have gone through the crisis, what you do in the other time is also going to be important. So in non-crisis moments, if you're going to be able to, set a routine, stick to it with discipline, focus on factors that will help cultivate habits which are healthier for you in the longer term, maintain like maybe reasonable times for sleep, a reasonable sense of eating, drinking enough water every day. These are very important for your physical health. A priority is getting your physical health in place. When the physical health is in place, mental health follows. It is very difficult to focus on factors which calm the mind when your body is restless and your body is not at its optimum health. So even in the clinic, when patients come to us, the first thing we do is we check their blood reports and make sure that physically they're doing fine, and then we move on to working on the mental health. So let's start with just getting physical things in place first, and if that has happened, then look at establishing healthy habits which you can maintain over the long term. And slowly and gradually, you will find yourself becoming more resilient in the faces of stress.
Okay. This now brings us to the end of our session. Before we say bye and thanks, is there any other question anyone would like to raise? That's about it.
Mention, Denver, the opportunity we talked about of having a job portal, connecting job seekers and job givers. Lots of feedback has come on the private chat to me. So would love to keep your feedback going. I put my email ID on the chat as well. And, would love to collaborate with Dimensions as we, build this out with the Archdiocese of Bombay. So whether Bombay Catholic Sabha, Dimensions, whoever is ready to step up and be part of this initiative, more are welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to add here, kindly, put our email address as not spam, mark it as not spam, because a lot of our mails are going into spam. So I request all of you, if you want to continue getting communication from us, mark our communication ID as not spam. We will be sending you some more links and some more communication as to how we can take this ahead. We have no intention to make this only a one-off event, but we really want to help you all bounce back on your feet. And that's one of the main reasons why we've had this program. Now, on behalf of Dimensions Global Christian Chamber of Commerce, I would like to first thank Bishop Alvin, Social Apostolate, Archdiocese of Bombay, collaborating with us to get this message out to the entire Archdiocese of Bombay and beyond. I would like to thank the speakers, Dr. Vilona Briganza, Royston Briganza, and Raymond D'Souza for spending their time with us today, sharing all their information and knowledge. Thank you so much. And I hope all of you here have benefited from it. And I hope we take this ahead and take it to its logical conclusion. Thank you so much for joining us.
Denver, there is a feedback form that you want to tell them about.
Yes, that will be emailed to them. So kindly, when you get our email, please fill it up so we can then communicate and design our courses and programs to suit your requirements. Please do fill up the feedback form when you get the link. We have one question from Mr. Lobo. So Lobo, you can unmute yourself and...
Yes, hello, good morning. Yeah, my question was actually to Mr. Royston Briganza. The question, I mean, he had spoken about the edu-tech, the education sector in the technology, I mean, you know, rising up due to tech during this period, during the pandemic. And we can also see that there are many state boards and, you know, even the CBSE board, which is looking at, you know, preparing videos and circulating it among the students of different classes so that the education doesn't suffer. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah, we can.
Yeah, the question is, how does one enter into this edutech setup? You know, if you do not have past experience, but you find this line to be interesting, and at the same time you do not have, you know, a kind of a B.Ed degree or a teacher's training degree, how to enter into this if you find this opportunity to be something interesting, which has just caught your attention now?
Thanks, Vinay, for that question. It's really a growing space. The key, I think, is to say that there are two words: there's edu and there's tech. So you need not have a teacher's qualification if you want to be in the edu tech space. So you need to understand either of the two. If you understand both, that's great, but you can even do one. I think most important is to understand the market. So where is the market? Is it through schools? Is it directly to students? What's the platform that you're looking at building? As I mentioned earlier, research is going to be an important element. So before you launch any business, you know, do a good research to find out where are those opportunities. Maybe 1 or 2 tie-ups as a pilot, visit 1 or 2 schools, ask them if they've done an education tech platform already. My son is doing his classes online, school has begun for them. Many schools have not begun because they probably are working on their platform. So if you can move quickly, identify a pilot, create the right edtech platform, get the content providers. It's a matter of moving quickly. It's a matter of putting the wheels in motion. Try and pilot something. Don't feel sort of drawn back because you don't have an education background or a qualification in education. Thank you.
Mr. R.K. Rubin had something to say. Mr. Rubin? Mr. R.K. Rubin, please unmute yourself. Mr. Rubin, please unmute yourself.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So it's a wonderful session, but what we are largely talking about is that a lot of our people have lost their jobs, or even those who are in business or struggling, or in a different levels. But all that we need to do, considering the long-term perspective, a sort of a portal has to be created in order to register our people, to find jobs, not only within our community, even outside. And I'm telling you, for many years, I've been hearing from my Punjabis and Gujarati friends asking me, well, if you have some Christian Catholic people to work for me, please refer to me. For the simple reason they consider them as safe people. They will not throw a challenge to them in their business. And they are good workers, dedicated workers. So this is what we have. But we'll have to convert this something more. Pardon? Is there anyone asking me something?
No, I think
No,
that's a
sorry.
good point, Ruben. Maybe someone
Please
else was on
continue.
the line.
Okay. So it's time we started something toward this. I know it's during this endemic, a lot of people have lost their job. But well.
So Ruben, I'll just sort of echo what you're saying. Absolutely spot on. If you or Dimensions or someone on this group sponsors 1 lakh today, in the next week we will launch the job portal. There is a tech developer who's ready. There's a body within the Archdiocese that's ready to host it. And it's a matter of getting it started. So the challenge is out to anyone on this group or the group itself. Build the tech platform. The Archdiocese Cardinal is ready. We've had a briefing with him. We'll put job seekers and job givers on the platform for matchmaking. Start off with the community and then open this out to others as well. But absolutely right, Ruben.
Good. If that is, hello, if you say the 1 lakh is the budget that we can create something, well, I am willing to commit myself for this. But what I'm going to give up, that's another thing that we all have to discuss. But we'll have to put this in place for a long time to come to help our people. That's what I'm
Excellent.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
my email ID is there. Denver's email is there on the chat. Send it to either of us, and we can take it forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. There are no more questions. Once again, thanks everyone, and looking forward to being in touch. And please do send us your feedback once you get the link. Thank you so much.